My name is Fatima Basrai. I'm the Director of Innovation for Innovate Health Yale, a program in social entrepreneurship in public health and education based at the Yale School of Public Health. And I'm excited to be supporting this prize today. So next slide, please. And a big thank you to all of our judges who are joining us today. We'll be hearing from them shortly as they ask some great questions. We have Margaret Yates Thorne, Rafael Perez Escamilla, Kaveh Kushnud, Leslie Asanga, and Billy Wong all joining us today, and we will get to know them a little bit more throughout the day. Next slide. So our presenters today, our 4 finalists are Balma Health, Interlytic, the Educator Wellness Project, and Thinking Huts. Next slide. And our schedule for today, we will start with Balma Health, and the team will have 10 minutes to present, and then the judges will have 10 minutes to ask questions. My colleague Ellie will be timing each team, so the team member who are pitching, Ellie will give you a message in the chat when you have 2 minutes left, and then when you have 1 minute left. After those 10 minutes are up, our judges will have 10 minutes to ask questions, and then we'll move on to the next team. We'll do this 4 times, and then the judges will go into a private Zoom room and do some deliberation, and then we'll come back right around 2:55 to announce the audience choice winner as well as the winner of this year's Thorne Prize. Matt Dura from Sci-City will be running the audience choice votes, so please stay here and hang around while we deliberate along with the judges. And with that, we will get started with Team Balma Health.
All right, hi everyone, my name is Sophia, and today I'll be presenting alongside my co-founder and brother, Nicholas. Together we are Balma Health, a company that aims to make interactive health education to help children and families through a difficult chronic disease diagnosis. Now, the best way to tell you about Balma Health is to tell you about who we aim to help. Meet Diana. Diana is a lovely 5-year-old girl recently diagnosed with asthma. Upon receiving her diagnosis, Diana and her family are given an overwhelming amount of information, both in the form of verbal and written communication, like a pamphlet, and maybe some direction to online resources. Understandably, Diana and her family leave the hospital room feeling anxious, overwhelmed, and confused. At home, Diana's parents worry about how this life-changing diagnosis will affect their daughter's mental health, and they worry about how to continue having healthy conversations about her asthma. Now, unfortunately, this is not an experience unique to Diana, but rather one experienced by more than 20 million kids in the United States and millions of parents as well. Now, to the right, you see a typical asthma education pamphlet given to a child recently diagnosed with asthma, like Diana. As you can see, it's overwhelming, it's dense, it's certainly not friendly, and it's not very approachable. When speaking with healthcare professionals, we see that the problem is simply that there is a lack of appropriate resources to teach children about health concepts. In fact, healthcare professionals are having to rely on pen and paper or even small objects like candies to explain major health concepts like cancer to children. Now, why does this matter? Well, the lack of appropriate health education actually damages the health of patients in 3 key ways, meaning they're having poor healthcare outcomes. So more emergency room visits, more hospital room visits, which all means valuable time, money, and resources for families that are already struggling. All of this combined means that these children and these families are having a poor quality of life. Now, before jumping into our solution, I'd love to tell you about the team behind Balma Health. We are passionately led by my brother and I, who collectively have more than 6 years of experience in doctor-patient communication, chronic disease research, and healthcare interventions. We are also accompanied by 2 lovely art interns who help bring our products to life, and we are mentored by a wonderful group of child psychologists, child education specialists, and business mentors. And together, we help champion the solution that we believe Balma Health brings. At Balma Health, we envision a world where children are not leaving hospital rooms feeling anxious or overwhelmed, but rather confident and assured. We believe with our interactive hands-on disease models that we can really help transform the way that children and families deal with chronic disease diagnoses, and that we can help improve pediatric patient healthcare outcomes. Now, a little bit later, I'll show you an example of our solution, but for now, I'd like to focus on what our solution entails. Each of our kits has an interactive and customizable disease model, a developmentally appropriate instruction story booklet, empowerment materials, and a parent or educator pamphlet or module, as a kit is designed to be used in facilitation with an adult. Now, you might be asking yourself, why interactive health education? Why is this our solution? Well, interactive health education has been shown across hundreds of clinical studies to actually improve health literacy and outcomes. So we know that it works in exactly the setting that we're trying to implement it in. Our kits are also built on an innovative psychological concept known as autonomous learning, which is basically a fancy word for hands-on learning. And that's been proven to increase feelings of self-efficacy and self-confidence while also decreasing feelings of anxiety and fear. And this is so important when you're trying to facilitate a healthy conversation with a child about a difficult subject like a chronic disease. Now, meet our COVID-19 kit. This is a wonderful example of our solution. We released it last year, and it's basically a lung model kit that the child builds from sponges and straws that shows them the effects that COVID has on the lungs. This was a huge success. We had thousands of orders nationwide from grandparents, parents, learning centers, entire school systems, health centers, doctors. We had over $10,000 in donations, countless press and news stories who wished to cover our story and our mission, as they believed it was so incredibly inspiring, and we sold out 4 times. So this is the first time an interactive health education tool was being made put on the market for the public, and it was not only wildly sought after, but also wildly adored. As you can see, almost unanimously, our respondents reported the kit met and exceeded their expectations. It facilitated conversation, it empowered, and they said they'd come back to order similar health-related STEM kits. So not only do we see that Balma Health is helping to educate and facilitate, but it's also doing so much more, and it's helping to empower, and it's helping to provide a degree of solace for families during this time. And that's what really makes Balma Health stand out, as we're the only company in this field really trying to do more than educate, but trying to improve the lives of patients. And now I'll pass it on to my brother and co-founder, Nicholas, to tell you a little bit more about what makes us different.
Thank you. So looking at the competitive landscape, we face indirect competition from companies such as Anatomy Warehouse or School Health, which make pre-built models, anatomical models. However, it's important to note that for these models, they're pre-built, which takes away from the entire autonomous learning model, and they're often extremely expensive and also present at an academic level far above that of a typical child, often for a medical student or a college level student. Other companies such as Legacy Products, Medican, make semi-interactive models that convey some of the similar topics we aim to do to children. However, they're $1,000 or more and intended for group use. The status quo in clinics is typically a referral to a child life center or other management center, or child life specialists have already reported that they lack the tools to adequately convey these complex topics to children. Ultimately, Balma Health provides the most cohesive combination of these factors: price, age appropriateness, interactivity, and autonomous learning, all while being reusable, which is extremely important in chronic illness education, as these are not one-time conversations. Reusability is key for children to continue to learn and expand on their prior knowledge with parents or educators. Our market opportunity is large, with over 20 million children diagnosed with a chronic illness at a certain point in the United States, which amounts to 20% of children per year being diagnosed with asthma, allergies, or diabetes, some of the most common chronic illnesses that are all growing rapidly in prevalence. The patient engagement solutions market is valued at over $16 billion, and the interactive segment of this market in the United States is growing extremely rapidly at over 17.9% annual compound growth rate. For our go-to market strategy, We will mimic our COVID kit strategy by going to e-commerce and catering to families and children who are either interested in the educational value of our kits or who have a chronic condition or a health condition. We will do this through the e-commerce store, but we'll use targeted advertising in pediatric education groups, advocacy groups, and other child education groups. Simultaneously, we will also aim to develop strategic partnerships with nonprofit organizations such as the American Lung Association and the JDRF, whom we have already spoken to and have shown interest in supporting us and giving us feedback on our kit once we have finalized our kits. Next, our final goal is integration into hospitals and clinics, where we hope to be able to target our target audience and give these kits to children upon diagnosis, where they can work with a pediatrician or childhood specialist to really hone these topics. We have already garnered some interest for early clinical use trials for our asthma and diabetes kits from Yale Medicine. Our current path forward consists of prototyping and testing of our kits, followed by eventual pilot studies as mentioned. And we really hope to somewhat get a launch around summer of 2023, once we're able to finalize manufacturing, supply chain, and figure out a way to large scale manufacture our kits, which are going to be more complex than our COVID kits in regards to manufacturing. So that's going to be our biggest hurdle moving forward. The Thorne Prize would be instrumental in aiding our success as a social venture. As mentioned, our current limitations, including with the COVID kit, have really been manufacturing, marketing, and social media. We put our strongest efforts into these facets as we grew our venture and made our COVID kits at home, but our expertise and our resources are simply not enough to account and move forward into a larger scale and the development of our more complex kits, such as our asthma kit and our type 1 diabetes kits. For that reason, the bulk of the prize money would be going towards manufacturing supply, as well as product development. And lastly, hiring of consultants who can support us with manufacturing supply, as well as design for these, for manufacturing and actually making these kits at these sites. Lastly, chronic illnesses disproportionately affect underserved populations in health, and a lack of education is exacerbated by the already low levels of health literacy in these populations. And we resonate greatly with the Thorne Prize in this regard. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation, and the opportunities for Balma Health are endless. There are a myriad of illnesses that affect children worldwide, ranging from autism to ADHD to diabetes type 2. And chronic illnesses are not only a problem in the US, but also globally. And we hope that Balma Health can grow into a global venture, championing positive and impactful social change for these underserved youth. Thank you.
Thank you, team. And I will turn it over to the judges for 10 minutes of questions. Whoever would like to kick us off from the judges, please feel free.
Hi, everyone. This is Rafael Perez's Camilla. I apologize for not having my camera on, but it is not working well. It looks very cloudy. So it's much better the picture that you have in front of you. So thank you, Balma Health team, for a very innovative project. I think I fully understand your line of thinking. I fully understand the potential size of this market and the need for your product. Having said that, in my view, as someone who has been engaged with early child development projects and policies, there is no doubt that for these toolkits to be effective, they also need to engage the caregivers or the the parents or the staff in early child care and education centers. So can you tell us a little bit about how much have you involved caregivers in the co-design of your product?
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. So a big part of our kit is actually to facilitate that conversation between a caregiver or an adult. So that's a big component of our kit. We work with child education specialists and child psychologists to help build parent modules or educator modules, caregiver modules to help the caregiver be able to walk the child through the kit and really have that conversation. Our kits go through 3 rigorous revision processes by child education specialists, by child psychologists that are familiar working with caregivers and adults with the child that has a chronic disease, and finally by a healthcare professional. So in each of these rigorous review sessions, we do take into account the perspectives of caregivers in relation to their experience in the healthcare setting.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Rafael. Kaveh, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Balma Health. I'm Kaveh Kushnud, faculty member, Yale School of Public Health, and faculty director for Innovate Health Yale. I had a question about the outcomes that you are hoping to measure. I got the sense from you that providing this toolkit may reduce the level of stress, for example. Is that going to be one of the main outcomes, or are you actually kind of assuming that there may be the asthma or the other diseases that you're thinking about, would you actually see an improvement in those disease outcomes? So what are the outcome measures that you want to identify?
Thank you for your question. So in regards to the outcomes, we've talked to a lot of experts, and we think that there are a variety of ways we can sort of measure outcomes, not only in health, but also academically. For example, a lot of interventional programs that are done in schools, for example, they measure the attendance, the nurse visits, the grades, and very simple factors like that as a measure of how effective these programs are. And we do understand that our kit is meant to sort of facilitate an initial understanding upon diagnosis. So we do want to evaluate the understanding of that around the early level. And there have been similar educational tools like pamphlets and educational story booklets that have been used for type 1 diabetes, for example, and measuring a simple understanding of terms has even been shown to be beneficial. In regards to health outcomes in a hospital, such as emergency room visits, for example, or inpatient time, these are things that we have yet to sort of finalize. So I would hesitate to give a direct answer for what actual health outcomes we would want to evaluate in a clinical use trial.
Thank you.
Thanks. Margaret, go ahead.
Thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. It really helped to be able to see an example of what the product looks like. Because it's the screen you have up, or that I'm looking at with the so many diseases that you're covering, how are you thinking about prioritizing your distribution along all of those? Because obviously you can't do everything at the same time. And I'm just wondering what will be the criteria to put one of those diseases higher on the list. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. I think for us currently, we're focusing on asthma and type 1 diabetes, only because type 1 diabetes for us, from talking to our mentors, one of our mentors actually had type 1 diabetes as a child. So she really resonates with the difficulty of conveying these procedures that you have to do, all the measuring and the stuff you have to do at home. So that's why we're focusing on type 1 diabetes and the prevalence of asthma, especially in underserved communities. Where I'm in Chicago, I've talked to a lot of people who work in Chicago public schools, and this is a huge issue. So we're focusing on these two concepts, as I think prevalence and mission, these sort of things resonate with what we want to do. In regards to hierarchy layer for what we would want to pursue, I think we would do similar things. For example, allergies are a very common problem in schools that affect children a lot. So I think that would be something that would be opportune for us to pursue after asthma and type 1 diabetes.
I guess I was just sort of thinking around, your opportunity to create partnerships with people that would help you with your distribution.
Yeah. So we that is another factor. So for example, we have talked to the JDRF, who are experts in type 1 diabetes, and as well as the American Lung Association. We're sort of working with them. They have shown some interest in supporting us. So we do recognize that a lot of resources from these nonprofits and advocacy groups are sort of centralized on more so on these major chronic illnesses, as opposed to something like epilepsy or CF, which is of course a very important issue, but less so focused than these hugely prevalent asthma or type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, even growing in the coming years and recently. So.
Thanks. Billy?
Thanks. Hi, Sophia and Nick, really great presentation. And it looks like this is going to have a lot of impact. One question that came to mind is, can you describe the process of making your new kits? It seems like you were very COVID-19 focused, and now you're going to switch directions a little bit towards asthma, diabetes, and allergies. So can you describe what the build out looks like and what expertise you have and what you might need moving forward?
Yeah, so we were focused primarily on COVID-19 in the beginning because it was more so of like a trial run. And then we realized how impactful having interactive health education was in the realm of diseases and illnesses. And then we began searching at what existed to teach children about health. And we mostly saw that it was very non-interactive materials. So we decided to begin constructing interactive health education for different materials. In regards to how we are building our kits, we are choosing them based on prevalence of chronic disease incidence among children, like Nicholas mentioned. Each of our kits does go through 3 rigorous review processes. So we work directly with child education specialists at the Child Study Center at Yale, child psychologists. We want to make sure that all the materials in our kit are being as empowering as possible, because the idea of our kit is to really equip them with an understanding that empowers them and decreases feelings of anxiety and fear and makes them feel in control of their illness as opposed to being controlled by their illness. And we also work directly with healthcare professionals in the field of whatever disease we're working with. So if we're working on asthma, we work directly with pediatricians that deal with asthma directly. And there's actually a center at Yale that deals with asthma directly that we've been working with. So each of our kits are very carefully tailored to make sure that we're being aware of the mental capacity of children, also developmentally appropriate. So each child, based on their age level, responds differently to a stressful event. So each of our kits will be directed towards a specific age level, because the instruction story booklet and parent modules will have to change a little bit depending on the age of the child.
Great,
Does that answer
thank you.
your question? Okay.
It does.
Thank you. And our final question will go to Leslie.
Hi, great presentation, team. So my question is around the cost. So it looks pretty good compared to other competitors, $29 per kit. So how, what's the cost to make one of those kits, and who bears the cost? Is it the parent, or are you going through organizations like hospitals to take care of that?
Sophia, if you could go to the financials. So our kits, with the COVID kit, it cost around $11 to create our unit. And that was without any sort of rigorous manufacturing. And from our current manufacturing we haven't finalized anything, but the conversations we've had, we will be able to sort of reduce this to around $6. And for our e-commerce direct consumer, this would be something that the educator or parent would be purchasing. And we also are planning to do a buy one and then donate one. We want to maintain that sort of donation that we did with the COVID-19 kit, but in a hospital or child life care setting or a school, our business model is going to be mirroring some of the existing tools offered by places like the JDRF or Lung Association, which are sponsored by alternative pharmaceutical device companies, for example. That is our final goal. And this is a pre-existing business model that enables these kits and tools to be delivered to patients for no cost after a diagnosis, for example.
Okay, thanks. Great. Thanks.
Thank you, team, and thank you, judges. We will go to our next presenter, Interlytic.
Hi, everybody. Interlytic is a tech, research, and people company. As a benefit LLC, we mix technology and research to make the world more equitable. My name is Jordan. I'm the founder. My background is as a researcher and org behavior consultant. My specialty is using data analytics to understand motivation and behavior. Vernay is an accountant and social worker. She makes sure we have both a financial and social impact. To the right, you'll see our mentors and advisors, professors, partners, and psychologists that help with everything from research to sales. Our research highlighted a huge problem: the lack of bias education. A microaggression, for example, is a symptom of bias. Education not going well. We surveyed hundreds of people of color and/or professionals. More than 80% experience microaggressions on a weekly basis. More than 95% experienced at least one microaggression in their workplace. More than 70% experience forms of subconscious bias in their friend groups. Here are real examples from our interviews. A trans person shared, "I have often been told, you look so good for a trans person." An Asian American shared, "When I say I'm from Cleveland, people ask me, where are you really from?" A Black American shared, "Someone said to me, you're not like the other Black people I know. You speak well." Society is poorly educated about bias. Because we don't learn about bias in school, it's hard to talk about. And even after hearing these examples, it's really hard to notice. Not being well educated about bias is costly. Businesses are losing money and talent. A 2020 McKinsey study revealed that non-diverse firms were 20% less likely to outperform their peers. Communities struggle to connect across difference. Numerous, overwhelming numbers of survey participants reported having friends nearly entirely of the same race. You and I may be making ill-informed decisions. If we aren't educated about bias, we might be saying and doing things that hurt one another. We saw the opportunity, and we have created a tool that helps us discover bias. This tool comes from decades of research, and it is innovated upon via data analytics. Here's how it works. Step 1, create an online profile on your phone. We incorporate your identity and background into the assessment. Step 2, take a 14-minute first impression assessment. You'll rate various people on different categories like professionalism, warmth, confidence, etc. If you'd like, you could connect your Fitbit watch for a biometric add-on that will tell you how your heart rate changes based on certain people or certain questions. This assessment works without the Fitbit, but beta users found the Fitbit information very helpful. Step 3, you'll receive a personalized report based on your community. We'll tell you the types of biases you have, whether they're positive or negative, and how intense they are compared to others. Step 4, learn about your bias from books, videos, and trained professionals that will help you acknowledge and address it. The only thing on the market close to this is the Harvard IAT, but we've mixed original research with data analytics, so our product is very hard to copy. The biometric add-on improves the results and makes them last longer. And the access to professionals makes our product even more personalized. A summary: make a profile, give your first impressions, learn about your bias, start thinking more equitably. We can create an unquestionably, consistently equitable world. Let's go step by step. Our direct impact, working B2B. You take a learning assessment at work, you and your workplace use that info to be equitable. Our scaled impact, working B2C. Your family and friends take an assessment at home, your closest circles are better educated about bias. Once we scale enough, we have an opportunity to change the system. Communities become aware and acknowledge their biases. Talking about identity won't be as scary. We're on a journey, and our mission, our product has the potential to help us set a societal expectation for equity. And then we'll have taught millions of people how to better support that expectation. Our solution is coming at the right time. Companies and communities are paying top dollar for DEI education. The DEI market in 2020 was $7.5 billion. It's expected to more than double by 2026. We have plenty of opportunity to make a social impact and make money. We will introduce a better way to track results, show evidence of long-term change, and focus on a technology that we can protect as much as possible from competitors. We are self-funded, currently profitable, and ready to make an impact. We have evidence that this offering is valued. I'll be working on this full-time. We have made money in 2 ways: selling assessments to businesses, selling aggregated, anonymized insights to businesses. In impact investors, this is where the moment where your ears perk up, because the second piece here is particularly special. We're able to tell a CEO if the finance department has a different type of bias than the IT department. We give HR the ability to pay closer attention to a woman's promotion cycle if they are in a department that shows significant gender bias. Our product offers rare insight while protecting the employees. Business leaders make better decisions, employees are more cared for, and no one's name gets mentioned. This offering in particular is really valuable to the businesses. While being students, we generated $35,000 in sales. With $7,000 in profit, that's a 20% profit margin, which is good for this industry. The assessment is priced at $25 each. We have a 75% profit margin. Once we go B2C, as I'm sure you can imagine, we'll generate more social impact and more money. On the left is our self-funded financial forecast based on real sales. We'll make $300K in year 1 and $2.5 million by year 5. If we had an investment of $250,000 today, we could expedite the product process and make approximately $5 million in revenue by year 5, which is double than what we currently have in the self-funded forecast. Your support is critical. Let's scale bias education together. What is the innovation? We are a bias analysis web platform available from home. A potential investor we chatted with called us the 23andMe for bias. We'll have an impact. We will help open new opportunities for disenfranchised communities. We'll help teachers create more equitable environments. We'll help families and friends connect across difference. Our social return on investment, our SROI, is 2. This means that your investment of $25,000 will result in $50,000 worth of social impact. To name a few ways that this happens, 120 disenfranchised members paid directly. We work hand in hand with disenfranchised community members for our research. 500 more learners educated about bias via our platform, at least, and more than 100K educated via social media for free. I have been on TikTok more than I'll admit. Interlytic is a tech, research, and people benefit LLC. Thank you for listening, and I'm welcoming questions.
Thank you. Judges, please jump in. So we'll start with Billy, then Leslie.
Thanks, Jordan. This is really a space that we're becoming more and more aware of, and certainly, you know, issues of equity are more apparent by the day. My question would be, how do you expect this to grow beyond, you know, just people taking a test and getting a score? Is that enough for a viable product, or what happens after the score, or is the score, you know, sufficient?
Thank you, Billy. It's really important and valuable for Interlytic to position ourselves as an assessment company, namely because when you position yourself as an assessment company, you have the ability to present yourself as a peer to all of the people doing really great equity work. So what will end up happening from this is, 1, someone takes the test. As time goes on, we then accumulate a large abundance of information about how people are thinking, how they're acting. The goal will then be to make a lot of that information, as long as it's helpful, accessible to the public. It's also, and the next step would be, once we have that information and we anonymize and protect the participants, that it it affords a new amount of insight to CEOs that I've been talking to, where they're able to just make better, more equitable decisions. So my response to that is the goal is to remain an assessment company, because I position Interlytic as being, oh, when we walk in, we'll do an assessment, we'll understand what's happening with employees and with families. Then we can act as a cooperator for other people who are doing research, who are helping make people less biased, who are helping make them more and more equitable. And then we can track those results. And in that way, we can really position ourselves to drive the DEI community to the next level.
Great, thank you. And would you consider data mining a key value add or of your company?
I think it can be, but when I think about data mining, I have to think about how do I still protect all of the people whose data is concerned, you know? I think it absolutely can be a value, but I need a really good answer on making sure that everyone's safe while we do it.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank
thank you. Leslie, go ahead, and then Margie, and then Rafael.
Hi, Jordan. This is a big problem you're solving, and I'm excited about everything you just presented. It looks like a huge opportunity. So I guess my question would be on the technology side. So being a tech company, do you have a full-time tech person on your team, or do you have any plans to bring them on board anytime soon?
Yes, we do have plans to bring them on board. They are if I'm the first hire and Bernae is the second, the third hire is going to be a data scientist who's going to make sure that we can get these answers as accurate as possible. The fourth person is going to be the full-time tech developer. Right now, the beta was built with an outside tech developer, but in the future, they will have to be an important part of this, just to really better the experience of the technology. The bones and the skeleton are there, but the tech person will start to build it out more.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks. Margie, go ahead.
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. I guess I'm sort of thinking that there's probably a lot of money out there for the type of work that you're doing, and I'm not sure that the Thorne Prize is catalytic in getting that money. What do you think about that?
I would disagree. As a benefit LLC, the goal is to scale impact with as much money as you're able to make. And when I think of the Thorne Prize, I consider it one-on-one with the impact. When I think of the Thorne Prize, I think of the 500 new people who could take this, who might not be able to afford this and who could learn from it. I think of the disenfranchised members who get paid because of it, frankly. I would consider it quite different. I hope that answers the question. In my mind, as I share with the social return on investment, when I think of money, the reason I structured this not as a nonprofit is because I see the financial value that this can have, and I connect that immediately to being able to scale social value beyond what my competitors might be able to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Rafael, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Jordan, for what I think is a very well thought out project. I think it also clearly shows a huge market potential that is out there for something like this. Going back to the point I think Billy was trying to make. So in my experience, it is extremely valuable, of course, as a researcher interested in inequities, to use valid methodologies to empower everyone in society to self-assess their own biases and levels of biases and so on. Having said that, at the end of the day, what do you do with that information? Because I could see how you go back to the owners of a company or the directors of a big organization they probably will have no clue how to address it. Like they may acknowledge, yes, we have a problem that we need to address, but then what are the solutions? How is this going to be corrected? So the question that I have is if you have considered actually linking the types of issues and biases identified to evidence-based programs available out there that the companies or organizations can hire to help them solve the problem. Because the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm understanding your product is not doing that. It's not providing training to change the culture in the organization.
Yeah, no. Thank you for this question, all the questions, gosh. The goal of the product is to further support training. And I'll give my example. I have been thinking about how we connect an ecosystem of people. So I'll start with B2C, because I like using my sister as an example. So after my sister finishes this assessment and she has her responses of, hey, these are the types of biases that we have seen that you have, what we'll then be doing is testing out certain resources like books, certain offerings that other competitors might give, like equity classes. And I think you can imagine certain things afterwards. The goal will be, once someone goes through those, we'll then be checking back in to have them retake the assessment. So as time goes on, what ends up happening is we will amass a tremendous ecosystem of things that we know works. And I would do the same for the B2C model. This is what we've seen in your business. Let's try a few things. And as time goes on and the data gets better, we'll then be able to do, I think, what you're referencing, which is we know what works for gender bias and we know it works differently for racial bias, and you need to do this exact thing. So I see Interlytic more as a supportive crossroads for like making the world more equitable, and not necessarily the trainer, but more of the guide and the assessor along the way.
Yeah, clearly stated. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We have 1 minute remaining. So Kaveh, do you have a quick question you would like to ask?
Billy and Rafael basically asked the question I wanted to ask, but I'm wondering if the data that you will be collecting, do you think one of the beneficiaries are researchers who are doing research on inequities, and the kind of data that you collect would allow them to do that, or not?
Oh, no, absolutely. When I referenced once we had the data and we could start sharing it publicly, I immediately had teachers and researchers and educators in mind, for sure. Possibly even the government, if there was some way for them to really utilize this info. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, team. Thank you, judges. And with that, we will move on to our next presentation, the Educator Wellness Project.
Hello. Hi. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. My thing isn't advancing. There we go. So to start, I would like to introduce you to Alex. Alex started her career as a TFA core member in 2018 and had only been teaching for 2 years when the pandemic started, and she had to move her entire classroom and practice online. When I met Alex in the spring of 2021, she was exhausted, lonely, overwhelmed, and wondering if teaching was really the right career for her. At one point, this was me too. Here I am teaching kindergarten 10 years ago in San Jose, California. As a teacher, I also found myself lonely, exhausted, overwhelmed, struggling to cope with the emotional experience of working with young children who themselves were experiencing trauma. I absolutely loved teaching, and I almost quit twice. Luckily, I had an incredible support system around me, but even with all those resources, I still ultimately burned out and left the classroom. So today, I want to tell you about the Educator Wellness Project, also known for short as EdWell. Our vision is for all teachers to feel sustained, supported, and valued in their profession. To get there, we're providing the tools and resources they need to turn schools into places of healing and connection. Here's the thing, teaching is hard. It can be a deeply rewarding, joyful, funny, musical profession, and it sure beats sitting at the desk all day, but it's really hard. And the last 2 years have only made it harder. Students right now are facing mental health issues that have doubled during the pandemic, and distance learning, school closures, and health risks have increased the demand significantly on teachers. As you can imagine, all of this is felt even more greatly in higher needs school communities where the majority of students are living in poverty or are students of color. 91% of educators say that pandemic-related stress is a serious problem in their profession. And again, this is even higher among Black and Latinx teachers. Meanwhile, a national reckoning with racial injustice and the politicization of curriculum are having outsized impact on our teachers. We're seeing a decline in enrollment in teacher prep programs. And most urgently, a recent study found that 44% of teachers plan to leave the profession in the next 2 years. That's about 1.5 million educators. Are we going to recruit another 1.5 million Americans to become teachers? Or are we going to find ways to support educators to stay in the classroom? We're responding to this crisis with EdWell. At EdWell, we provide coaching and capacity building to support teachers with the tools they need to care for their own well-being and equip them with the knowledge they need to support student mental health as well. How do we do this? We're building an online platform to provide individualized wellness coaching and social-emotional learning resources for educators. Traditional mental health care is stigmatized and inaccessible, so we're coming up with something different. Here's how it works. It all starts with a partnership between EdWell and a school or district. Through the partnership, educators sign up for free wellness coaching. They share their goals and get matched with a wellness coach. Then, through 50-minute bi-weekly coaching sessions, they reflect on their current state of well-being, identify the areas they want to grow, set goals, and then build skills and habits to meet them. Most simply, we ask teachers, what's getting in the way of your individual wellness, and then we help them craft a path to move forward for greater sustainability. You might be wondering what teachers talk about with a wellness coach. In our over 350 hours of wellness coaching so far, we found a few core themes. Teachers talk about managing stress, setting boundaries, and how to navigate healthy conflict with their colleagues. They also often work with their coach to build self-awareness, self-compassion, to identify their core values, or even develop a simple routine for their physical health. We ran several smaller pilots in the 2020 to 2021 school year, and then we've had 10 paid pilots in schools this year. All of the schools serve high-need student populations with a high percentage of students of color. And we've seen great initial results from these pilots. 75% of our educators reported increased job satisfaction, 81% increased their ability to cope with stress, and 95% reported improved well-being. And we know this matters for retention. A recent report from Brookings highlighted several high-impact interventions work to retain teachers, including free counseling and coaching. And they argued that teachers' mental health is inextricably linked to feeling supported and effective in the classroom. That means giving teachers the dedicated time, space, and resources that they need. And EdWell is doing just that. We asked our current participants how they'd feel if they could no longer access their EdWell coach, which we know is a key indicator of product market fit. And 95% said they would be disappointed or very disappointed if they couldn't work with their coach anymore. So it's clear to us that this work is resonating and making an impact, and now we're ready to grow. I wanted to bring you the words of some of the teachers we work with because they speak louder than any of our statistics. One wrote, "Wellness coaching has really helped me reframe how to interact with colleagues and how decisions are made. It also taught me to give myself the same forgiveness that I give to others." Another shared, "When I filled in the survey to sign up, I mentioned wanting to leave education. My coach helped me see my gifts and how I can use them. She helped me to reflect, and now I remember why I'm in the right place." We're often asked about the existing wellness landscape, and we're clear about how EdWell stands out among the competition. While self-help books offer wonderful support and content. They're usually written for a more general audience. And the mental health tech market is booming with online app-based programs that support personal development, but none of them are specifically tailored to the educator experience. Finally, we know several organizations that are working with school systems to provide professional development in adult social emotional learning, but it seems that none of them offer individualized or one-on-one coaching, which we think is critical to make these changes. The Educator Wellness Project stands out as relevant, accessible, relationship-based, and an individualized solution. Why us? This entire organization is built for teachers, by teachers, and mental health professionals. We have over 25 wellness coaches on the team, all of whom are current or former educators and represent, I think, 15 different states. These are my three co-founders and board members, and between us, we have nearly 40 years of experience in education. We've started 4 startups and founded a school. And then Anna and Megan are 2 additional teammates who are bringing mental health expertise to the team, both trained clinicians and therapists. And Anna is currently getting a PhD on the impact of teacher well-being on student outcomes. The time is now to invest in teacher wellness. A rise in the use of telehealth means that more consumers are willing to meet with a counselor or coach virtually. And there's a significant shortage of mental health professionals due to the pandemic, which makes alternative options such as coaching even more valuable. Finally, the recent rush of federal funding for schools makes this the right moment for us to get our model in front of district leaders. Here's how we scale our impact. We're primarily B2B, so we're going to market with stakeholder partnerships that allow us to get the model into schools. We work with charter schools, school districts, and teacher development programs, such as Teach for America, to provide coaching directly to their staff. We're also developing partnerships with higher ed institutions to improve the empirical evidence that teacher well-being impacts student outcomes. We're funding this model, we're a nonprofit, through a thoughtful mix of earned and contributed revenue so that we can keep this sustainable while also remaining accessible to teachers. And in 3 years from now, we plan to have at least 100 coaches working with 800 teachers across the country. That said, we know this is a tiny slice of the 3 million teachers nationwide, so we're fully prepared to scale exponentially once we've further proved our impact. The Thorne Prize helps us secure additional funding from other institutional investors, such as the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, where we're already in a final round, and it would be instrumental in getting us to our $300,000 goal. With this prize money, we're adding new schools, and we'd love to use a portion to run a free pilot in a New Haven public school specifically. I want to close, if I have time, by sharing this quick video from Alex, which she shared with us after she completed her coaching program.
I think if you're a teacher who feels lonely and super close to like burning out and tired, I think you could benefit a lot from what Edwell has to offer. And I feel really lucky to have found Edwell because I kept saying that I was going to prioritize my needs and I kept putting it off as soon as something else came up, and every week something else comes up. So I've been able to connect with educators from across the country, been able to talk with the counselors at Edwell and take the time that I need for myself. And I know I wouldn't have done that without them.
So we know that wellness coaching works, and we hope that you'll join our movement for Ed Wellness by granting us the Thorne Prize to help us keep teachers in the classroom so that students can thrive. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thanks, Nicola. Rafael, go ahead, and then Margie.
Thank you, Nicola. Very nice, clear presentation. I do have to disclose a potential bias. My son is an education director at a preschool in New York, and I know exactly what you are talking about in terms of the need for this program. So I have so many questions, but I'll just ask one so that all the judges have their time as well. To me, the heart of the success for this program at the end of the day is the quality of the coaching. So I want to know a little bit more as to where do you find the coaches, who trains the coaches, are they experts in school teachers issues? what is the sustainability of a model like that? Are you thinking about training of trainers? Are you thinking that teachers that successfully complete the program can then build social networks around men? So I think you get it where I'm getting with this question. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, sorry for my voice, everyone. I have COVID right now, so I'm just working my hardest to be as loud and clear as possible. So yes, absolutely. We do have a network effect, like scale model, where we want teachers who go through our program to then sign up to become wellness coaches as well. This is really built on that belief that strong and structured peer connection is what keeps people in the work. And so we want all of our coaches are current or former educators. We train them ourselves. We posted a job post just on Monday for our next year of coaching. And in 24 hours, we had 30 qualified applicants. Like teachers are so desperate to do this because they want to give back to the community and support their peers and make some extra cash on the side. We know that a lot of teachers have trouble making ends meet. And this is a way, frankly, the hourly pay being a wellness coach is more than they're making in the classroom. And so we think this is a great like side hustle for teachers. And I lost my train of thought. So yeah, so we think we can train them. Oh yeah, and then we're also going to work on building over the next year. We have our own coach training, but we're actually going to make it an ICF, Institution of Coaching Federation or something, an ICF certified coach training so that it really can compete with other coaches that are out there. But our belief is that there's never going to be enough therapists to do this work and this need, so we have to come up with something different.
Yeah, thank you. Well received, Nicola. Be well.
Thank you. Margie, go ahead.
I'm sorry that you're having to struggle with you're not feeling well, but you're doing a great job.
You really sound like this.
Rafael actually asked the main question that I was interested in too, whether coaches at the end of the day became that was your constraint to growth. So maybe I'll just go at another question, which is, I am aware that there are huge amounts of money available at the district levels that have flown from COVID relief packages that a lot of which is being spent. I think the number is about 60% on teachers countrywide. How do you rethink those, given that opportunity, can you rethink your expansion plan in a way to really grab a hold of that at this moment in time where there is such an opportunity?
Yeah, I hear that question, and I think I've grappled with it a lot, but as a nonprofit leader, like I'm so committed to making sure that our impact is there. And so the idea of saying like, let's go out and get $1 million this year and train up 200 teachers right away, honestly, like it doesn't sit well with me. I want to spend more time. I think even going from 10 schools to 20 schools is pretty significant growth to really prove our impact. But as I shared in my last big fundraising pitch, like in 2 years, I'll be back asking for 5 million to really scale it up. But I do believe that we owe it to teachers to get a little bit more evidence of the model and also get better at training the coaches.
Okay, thank you.
Billy, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy.
Hey, Nicola. Thanks so much for this, and I hope you feel better soon. This is an incredible project, and certainly the last 2 years have just shown us all why this is so important. My question for you, and is something you wrote in your application, is that as you were building out this platform, you wanted to really build a smooth experience first instead of building the technology. So my question really is about that technology, and you had that really nice app that you demoed on the screen. So my question would be, have you made progress with that, and how does that look like? What does the user experience look like for the teachers, and how do you think it being on a mobile app would get your message across and make some impact?
Yeah, so absolutely. This year we focused on doubling down on what mattered the most for our users, and it was the conversation they had with their coach. So we said, let's just make sure as many of those conversations happen as possible. The big secret here is we've discovered white labeling. And I found an amazing product out there that is, I think, originally built for nutrition counseling, people who have independent practices, and we're working with them right now to develop a white label where it would be an Edwell app, there would be a web version and a mobile version. All of our branding, they would be super, super private. It's HIPAA compliant. And it allows us to not have to like build out a whole tech side of our team, but just to really get the right advisors in place so that we're implementing it in the best way possible. And then doubling down on like the clinical experience on our internal team, which is what we think is most important.
Great, thank you.
Leslie or Kaveh, any questions?
Hi,
Go
Nicola.
ahead, Liz.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, great presentation, great work you're doing. And I guess my question is going to be regarding the technology piece of it, like being wide labeled technology. So is the technology only going to serve in like easing communications between the teachers and the coaches, or is it going to serve any other purpose?
It also, so it eases the communication. It is the video conferencing platform that's HIPAA compliant, so we're fully covered in that case. And we do one day plan to grow to having clinical therapy as well. So it's great to have that HIPAA compliance, but it also is going to help us with the data collection. Right now, we're gathering a ton of data on what's happening in coaching sessions, what teachers are talking about, and what works to improve their well-being. And our goal is to be sharing that data back with our school leader partners and district level partners. And so going from our own like homegrown, we actually had an amazing Sci-City intern who helped us build an entire Airtable model to track all this data, but we'll be able to put it inside of this platform, which will just make things a lot simpler on our end and allow us to look at that data more closely.
Okay. Yeah. And is there looking at the other constraints that you have, especially scaling and hiring more and more coaches, is there any part of your processes that can be automated using technology that you think can help?
I am constantly asking myself that question, Leslie. Is there a way that we could not do this and get the computer to do it for us? I think absolutely in the hiring and the screening process, some of the things that we're interested in is also adopting some LMSs, learning management software, so we can have like part of the coach training process be independent and self-run. Like right now we do coach training all together on Zoom over the summer, but we want that to be rolling. At any time you could sign up, you could do the coach training, you could get some practice hours, and then you could be certified and be listed on our roster and start coaching other teachers. And then like there's definitely a lot of internal processes that I'm learning how to automate day by day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
I got really curious by your presentation, thinking about, in public health, sometimes we spend too much time thinking about populations who've been negatively impacted and try to do something about it, which of course is important, but we pay less attention to how about people, in this case, teachers who went through all this stress, but somehow managed it without any kind of coaching. What do we know about what has worked for teachers who were able to do well, frankly, during the last couple of years? And I'm not sure you can answer that question, but I feel like it's important for us to understand, what is it because of their religious background? Like, what is it about them that allowed them to keep going and not suffer the same way that these other teachers felt? Just a curiosity that I have.
I'll really quickly say our core pillars are awareness, compassion, connection, and agency. And the research that we've done kind of bears up that those are the 4 things that make the biggest impact on people's long-term sustainability. And I can tell you more offline.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicola. Thank you so much, judges, for the great questions. We will move into our 4th presentation now of Thinking Heads.
Okay.
Yep, there we go. Just sorry, my computer's being slow.
Maybe you could share the link with Fatima if it's not.
Okay, I think there we go. Okay. Sorry about that. I think perfect. Awesome. Great.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Maggie, and my story begins with having been adopted from a rural village in China when I was 18 months old. Early on, I knew that my life could have turned out a whole lot differently, and I came to understand the power of education in creating opportunities. 7 years ago, I set out to tackle the global education crisis. That marked the founding of Thinking Heads, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that leverages innovative, humanitarian-driven technology solutions to increase access to education. Since the beginning, our mission has been to build a future in which quality education is accessible by leveraging 3D printing to build more schools in less time where they're needed most. Over 2 years ago, I met Antonio, a professor born and raised in Madagascar. Antonio opened my eyes to the experiences of Malagasy people. If you live to age 6, you're really lucky. You often rely on a single mother who barely makes $2 a day. The nearest school is often miles away, and even then, it's overcrowded with 87 students in one room. Thousands of students face this reality every day. Even now that schools are reopening, quality infrastructure is still greatly needed. Online learning is not an effective solution, and many students in developing communities do not have access to the internet. Additionally, immense population growth requires education to integrate people into the economy. Education can bring about innovation and development. As a farming and mining economy, child labor is very common. Instead of traveling many miles to attend school, children will drop out to support their family. Girls as young as 10 years old may be forced into marriage for financial support.
We interviewed over 220 Malagasy students who have been through the school system to gather their perspectives. They described the huge need for schools and the tremendous hope that our project will inspire in their country. So, we are building 3D printed schools in partnership with communities where they are needed most. We are working with local community partners and governments who will maintain our schools and supply teachers. 3D printing is a piece in the puzzle to solve the global education crisis and support technology transfer. Education is at the root of unlocking human potential and lifting economies. Now you may be wondering, why 3D printing? It drastically reduces construction time and waste when compared to traditional construction practices. This allows us to build schools in weeks rather than months, while also addressing our environmental impact. Time is money, and in our case, time will influence how many students are able to attend school. 3D printing will revolutionize infrastructure development.
On April 14th, 2022, we completed our first 3D printed school in Fianarantsoa, Madagascar, on the university campus EMIT. Our school was designed by Defining Humanity, a professional architectural firm, and we contracted 14 Trees, a subsidiary of the global construction firm Lafarge Holcim, to provide the 3D printer that constructed the walls in a layering process. We employed local workers who built the roof and placed the windows and door. Our on-the-ground team also coordinated project logistics. Our hybrid design is an intentional choice to blend innovation while supporting the economy through local job creation. During the construction process, we met with the governor and representatives of the president. We're currently working towards finalizing a partnership with the Ministry of Education. In this partnership, the ministry will supply teachers, assist with the printer import process, and maintain our schools.
For each of our projects, Thinking Huts ensures that we are supporting the local economy and keeping ownership of the buildings within the local community. While we focus on the physical construction of the school buildings, the local government and our education partners are responsible for training the teachers and administrative staff needed for each school. Our role is to bring these partners together, develop community relationships, and produce quarterly reports for each of our schools in order to ensure their longevity. Our process starts by going through a permitting stage and working with the local government. The buildings themselves do fall within proper construction and building codes. They are structurally sound and have lifetimes that last longer than traditional methods of construction. Design-wise, given the honey-shaped rooms, classrooms can be laid out in countless configurations to form entire school complexes. Each school will be uniquely built to align with each community's needs. 3D printed buildings have already proven to be superior to traditional methods of construction. New Story Charity, a nonprofit focused on ending homelessness in Latin America, has already used the same technology to construct a whole neighborhood of houses in a fraction of the time and cost as is traditional. In fact, one of our board members, Ellen Peck, work at New Story and provides us with insights into their process and how to avoid some of the early bumps that they encountered. So far, we have learned that while all pilots are expensive, through economies of scale, our buildings will cost exponentially less over time as we replicate our schools throughout Madagascar and other countries where infrastructure is needed. Globally, construction-related spending is $10 trillion, which is equivalent to 13% of GDP. This makes construction one of the largest sectors of the world economy. However, construction has suffered for decades from remarkably poor productivity relative to other sectors. We are leveraging this market momentum to combat the global problem of lack of educational opportunities. Based on our conversations with community members on the ground and local nonprofits in Madagascar, including UNICEF, we found that 22,000 schools are still needed as 45% of school-age children are not enrolled. This is about 20 times more schools than is currently number of schools present in Connecticut. Our work is providing a feasible and immediate solution to this monumental problem. Since we are a nonprofit, we rely on individual donors, corporate sponsors, grants, and government partnerships. Furthermore, we offer consulting services and plan to develop our own material mixture to obtain the intellectual property necessary for licensing out its usage. The need for Thinking Huts is present, and we are on the path to be financially sustainable.
I returned from Madagascar about 8 days ago, and the most touching memory is of a young father named Herman, who told me that his dream is to offer his children the education they need to succeed in their lives. His story is one of many, and I wish that it was easier for others halfway around the world to hear. In order to ensure the sustainable development and operations of our schools, we hire on-the-ground teams and will continuously partner with local governments and organizations in each community we work with. Since we are tackling a global problem with innovative technology, we have a massive potential to scale. For our pilot, we created our own supply chain, bringing together the printer, materials, and people, and we will continue to perfect it over each build. Our next project is our full Honeycomb campus vision of multiple huts, and it will be on the west coast of Madagascar in Tulier, upon 1.2 acres of donated land. This school will serve students ages 4 through 16. We want to ensure that students make it through to university if they choose, and that overcrowding and travel distance will no longer be an obstacle. For the past 7 years, we have worked tirelessly to reach out to partners and collaborators to ensure that our vision will succeed. Now our team of professional architects, engineers, lawyers, professors, and even advocates inside the Madagascar government position us to scale. Our on-the-ground team, Ella, David, Antonio, and Hari, especially make our work possible. To make our vision a reality, we raised more than $300,000. We completed our pilot as a volunteer-run organization, including our architects Defining Humanity, who did all the design work pro bono. Some of our generous donors include Jennifer Gates and Gary Friedman, the CEO of Restoration Hardware.
We have been featured by the World Economic Forum, Smithsonian, Fast Company, as well as many other publications around the world, reaching countries from China to Australia. Now that our pilot project is complete, we are shifting our focus to growing our impact in Madagascar. This summer, we will also work on fundraising for our future schools with the release of our BBC World News segment as well as developing our own proprietary printer and mixer. The Thorne Prize will help us acquire our own 3D printer rather than rent one out. As such, this is essential to catalyze our organization. It costs around $3 per month to educate a student in Madagascar. As such, $25,000 could send about 1,000 students to schools for a year. As an electrical engineer and computer science major, I am planning on developing our printer for my senior design project. The Thorne Prize will help us purchase all materials necessary to develop this, and as well as some materials that can be mixed locally on site. In emerging economies, there are many barriers to education access. Namely, current schools are not suitable learning environments, students have to travel long distances to even get to the nearest schools, and overcrowding is a norm. With our innovative method of construction, we can build schools in a fraction of the time. We have the potential to scale globally to ensure that every student, no matter where they are from, has equitable access to quality education. We have established a knowledge base expanding from the education sector to breakthrough construction technologies. We have experts supporting us and all the partnerships necessary to continue to scale our organization. The Thorne Prize is essential for us to ensure our mission lives on for multiple generations. If you'd like to get involved with our mission, please visit our website at thinkinghuts.org. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, and we will now answer any questions.
Thank you all. Judges? So we'll start with Billy. Go ahead.
Thanks, Miriam and Maggie. This is really innovative. It's nice to see folks in the makerspace really creating a lot of these social solutions globally. My question is really around this idea of attribution, so, which means that how can you be sure that the impact that is generated from creating these schools, these 3D printed schools, are better, is the best use of funding, for example, than other means of education, like educating teachers or more traditional forms of bringing resources to these different communities?
That's a really good question. The education sector is very large and there are a lot of problems that do exist. For us, we are focusing on the construction side of it. So we would only be working in areas that do need infrastructure. For Madagascar, there's an estimated need for 22,000. And when I went there, it is very dilapidated. And I think our best use of funding would be to support the infrastructure development there. And when we spoke to the government officials, they're also interested in maybe applying this to housing as well. So I think there's many more opportunities beyond the schooling side of it too.
Thank you.
Margie and then Leslie.
Thank you guys very much. So, being entrepreneurs as you are, it's been a year since we chatted, or since I've chatted with you last. What were the big things that you learned in your past year then, and any pivots that you made as a function of that learning?
At least for me, the biggest pivots were the partners. So we switched architects and also printer partners. Something I realized earlier on is that we set the stage for the values that we do hold. And if they do not share the same vision and the impact that we want to make, then you shouldn't work with them. And then the other biggest part would, of course, be the fundraising, just trying to get it off the ground based off of a vision, essentially. It was a huge challenge. So I just learned the perseverance that if you want to make it and be a successful entrepreneur, it's basically how much you can do with $0.
Definitely, I would say another pivot too would be really just emphasizing kind of like the feasibility and really kind of putting more concrete numbers ahead, especially when talking to kind of donors and fundraisers. Since last year, it seemed that even though we had kind of like done the work, sometimes it was hard for people to see just how like impactful or how quickly this technology could actually be used to construct buildings. And it seemed kind of like a pipe dream last year. And I think over this past year, we've really worked hard to put everything in concrete kind of like fashion, so people can actually see that this pilot project, now that it's completed, like can succeed in one situation, in one case, and can continue to scale up in the future. So really just putting that in, and when speaking with other people.
Thank you.
Thanks. Leslie, go ahead.
Hi, Miriam and Maggie. I mean, amazing work you all are doing. As someone who grew up in the third world country, walking 8 miles to school every day, I can very much relate with this problem of lack of infrastructure, and also amazing progress you've made, like actually building and launching it. I mean, it takes a lot of work to go from just thinking about stuff to actually having a physical product out there. So I guess my question would be around the printer. So you're not developing the printer yourself. You're buying, owning, or procuring it from somewhere else.
Yes, so right now, yeah, we have a two kind of fold process. So we rented out the printer for the pilot project from 14 Trees. However, moving forward, we want to work alongside WASP, which is another 3D printing company that aligns much more closely with our values. They actually don't use a concrete mixture for the extruder for the building of the walls. They actually use kind of like a mixture that is something that's easily craftable given like local resources, natural resources, kind of more like a soil like sod mixture. So in the near term, just as we keep working on building up our new schools, like in the Tulier campus next summer, we'll be using their printer. But on our own side, just while that's going on, we will be developing kind of our own proprietary mixture, and for my senior design project, would be working on kind of like our own proprietary printer for future years, post kind of like us acquiring also like the WASP printer.
Okay, and then what would you say your secret sauce is? Like, is it, are you guys innovating in mostly in the processes of procuring and building those HUDs?
I would say it definitely is the whole process of bringing it together. Since I was the project manager for bringing it to life, I think what people are interested in when they approach us is how we actually did it. So I think that would be something hard for people to replicate.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you. Rafael, go ahead.
Yes, so thank you very much, Miriam and Maggie. Very interesting, innovative project. Lovely to see pictures of you in action, actually in the field. You clearly have done formative work, piloting, and so on. So the main question that I have is a little bit philosophical about the business model. If I was a government or a local entity, in the country where we are going, what I would love is to end up buying my own 3D printer and to have access without restriction to the mix that is needed, not only to build schools, but maybe to build many other things, and actually to end up scaling this up all over the country. I could see a decision maker, assuming this is well received by communities and so on, thinking, this is really much less costly than the traditional building approaches. We'll create jobs, we will bring technology to the country, and so on. But it sounds like that model would actually undermine your business model, right? In other words, what would be at the end of the day the purpose of your non-for-profit if that ended up being the case? So the question is really hypothetical as to what do you think about this perhaps philosophical difference that local governments, communities may have, and have you run into this at all, or am I just imagining issues that will never happen?
Well, to To do the first part, I would say I strongly believe that as a nonprofit, the end goal would be to not exist. So you have essentially solved the problem. So if more people were to adopt this construction method and we were able to get more students in school, I think that would be overall a good thing. And then in terms of the government, they often don't actually have the funds. So I don't think that would be something that would happen. Like I did speak with multiple ministries there while I was in the capital. And for Madagascar, they just don't really have any type of budget to help with more social related things. So it probably would be unlikely for them to be able to invest in multiple printers and do that research and development to scale up on their side.
Thank you, Maggie. I just want to also mention, but there are also entrepreneurs in the countries that are looking for opportunities that when it comes to construction, they become very appealing. That's all I want to say. But your point is well taken, and I like your statement about at the end of the day, if the outcome for a non-for-profit is that they ran out of business because they solved the problem, then that was the whole purpose to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you all. Kaveh, did you have any questions?
No, my questions already came up.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you all, presenters. Judges, we will take the next 25 minutes or so and convene in the private judging room. And then we'll be back at around 2:55 to announce the winners. Audience members, Matt is going to be sharing the link for audience choice voting, as well as feedback. So stay tuned and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So now we are in the kind of the nerve-wracking time for the teams. And to be a little bit of a distraction, we're going to give them a little bit of attention and have the audience be participating and asking them questions, and also voting for who you think should be winning a little bit of money. We have an audience choice winner today for $500. So what I'm going to do is I will share my screen, and there are, as you can see, 2 QR codes. So one is for the audience choice voting, and also I'll put it in the chat for the audience choice, the link to it. So on the left there, you see there's the audience choice. If you scan it with your phone, you can vote through that, or you can use the link in the chat, however you'd like to use that. And then on the right, you see there's an audience feedback form. And what that form is that if you want to connect to teams or support them to say like, hey, I loved your pitch, what you're doing is great, or like, hey, have you talked to so-and-so? That is like for you to communicate with teams, like maybe some resources, because all the money that's going out today for all the different prizes at Startup Yale is great. But another big piece of going through Startup Yale and pitching is that you're getting in front of an audience that can support you, because building these ventures takes a village, and it takes a lot of support from all of you who are in the audience. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being willing to support teams. Now, there's those 2 things, but the other thing we want to do is give you, the audience, the opportunity to ask questions. So if you look in the bottom of the Zoom room, you see there's a Q&A function of that. And with that, you can submit questions to any of the 4 teams that pitched today. So maybe like the judges didn't ask a question that you thought like should have been asked, or like, hey, I'm just like more curious, more interested in this piece of it. Like whatever it's on your mind, you want to learn more about a specific team, you can add it in that Q&A function, and we'll have the teams answer it for you. So if you want to take a couple of minutes, use your audience choice votes, and then also use the Q&A function, and we'll get it going here. For the teams, I guess to start off the questions, what is something that in the next 3 to 6 months that you're most looking forward to with your venture? And if you feel like you have your answer already, feel free to unmute and just answer it.
I can share.
Go for it.
in the next 3 to 6 months. I'm most looking forward to launching our new region. So I know we're opening up, or we're going to be offering our services in Arkansas. We are hopefully going to be offering them to some schools in Louisiana. So we're just expanding our reach, and it's going to be exciting to meet new groups of teachers.
For us, I think I would say that now that our pilot project is fully constructed, we're really looking forward to over the summer kind of like sharing the success with potential donors. And I even going back to talking with a lot of companies we had reached out to early on about potential sponsorships. We had received a lot of people and organizations who were interested in supporting us, but they wanted to see that we could at least construct our pilot project first. So now that we've done that, going back to all of that is something that we're really looking forward to, so we can really gain enough funds and resources to really scale up our organization and keep constructing schools within Madagascar, and then hopefully beyond that.
I'd definitely say we're most excited about getting the first prototypes of our diabetes and asthma kits and starting to test those in the Diabetes Center at Yale and the Asthma Center at Yale. I think it will be really meaningful to see those kits in the hands of children, and I think that's what we're most looking forward to.
I'm most looking forward to a project. I'm most looking forward to a project I'm going to be having with preschool teachers. And then over 6 months, I'm going to be able to track to see how those teachers' results will change the kids. We'll see what happens.
Oh, that all sounds really exciting. And also, selfish note, as someone who has watched all of your ventures kind of grow up for the past year, this is like a really cool moment for me personally. So it's really cool to see it, like how far you've all come. It's a really cool moment. So Yi, thanks for putting a question in. You can feel free to put another question in. Anyone? I guess one other question I have for you, and if no one else has the audience, we'll give it just more of a break before the judges come back. But like, what is like, besides money, right? Like money's always a thing you're always looking for. Like, what's another resource, like a connection that like, hey, like this would get us over one of our giant hurdles. Like, what is one thing if you could have right now besides money that would like really help you take another step?
I can go. I think I'd say for Balma Health, it would really be like hiring interns, like more product design interns, or hiring consultants to really help us see the path of manufacturing. One of our biggest hurdles has been finding the best manufacturer, one that resonates with our image, our mission, one that is environmentally friendly. Those are all things that are really important to us. So having expert consultants in that field and having connections in that field would really help kind of catalyze our efforts.
Mine would be finding a data scientist that is not a white man. Just being honest, it really is that. As I try to build this organization, we have to be as equitable as possible. And as I go through recruiting, I just need to find the person who fits in and also is representative of the world. That's something that would change the game. When we've been looking, and if you know anyone, please tell me. Data scientist.
I can share, for us, the biggest thing is connection to decision makers in schools and districts. The best way to get our product into schools is with like a personal relationship with a principal or an HR director. And that's where we've been the most successful so far. So if anyone in the audience runs a school or knows anyone who runs a school, send them my way.
And then for us, always would be saying kind of like volunteers or supporters, people who would be able to just help us out with some work pro bono. We're really lucky to have, for instance, like the architects Defining Humanity conduct all of the work free of charge for us. And that's how we were able to actually print out the school. And I think so, yeah, in the future, we would love kind of like more supporters, more researchers, maybe like helping out develop our own like building mixtures, or more supporters being able to like donate large acres of land for the schools to be built on, as is the case with the our upcoming school in the Tulia region. It was a donated piece of land. So any more like even on the ground support like that is something that we really would like to see and needed. And actually, like right now, we're working like finalizing a partnership with the Malagasy Ministry of Education. So hopefully with that, that's also just like some extra the support help that we would need besides just money that we're looking forward to.
Wonderful. Those are all good asks. All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions from the audience. So what I'll do, we'll take maybe like a couple of minutes here, and feel free to take a break, bio break, grab a snack, and then when we come back, we'll have the judges' results, and I'll put on some like hold music in the meantime. So thanks for hanging with us. And if you're in the audience, keep voting for audience choice, because again, it's really close. If you've been around for the other prizes, they've been really close too. I think I'm the only one who can actually see the results, but they've all been really close, and this one has been no different. So get your vote in if you haven't done so already.
We are back, and I wanted to quickly turn it over to any of the judges who wanted to say a few words before we announce the recipients.
So Fatima, since I have to leave very soon, I just want to tell each and all of you how much I learned from your projects. They are all super innovative. The areas of need that you are addressing are incredible. The thinking behind social justice, equity issues, really addressing the mental health and well-being of teachers and other key, persons during these very difficult times is very reassuring to me that you will all get very, very far with your enterprises. And my wish is that you all stick together, and that one of these days you all together develop a new enterprise that includes all of your wonderful skills and innovative ideas. Thank you so very much for the opportunity of being a judge for your projects.
Thank you, Rafael.
Am I on mute or not on mute? No. I think that it was hard this year in many ways, because I think we know that all of you are going to be successful at what you're doing. So judging wound up probably being more about how it specifically fit either the parameters of the Thorne Prize or the moment in time. But as Rafael just said, nobody should not view being in this round as other than a great deal of excitement for your work and a great deal of confidence in your ultimate success.
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to the pitches. And I think the one thing I really love about the Thorne Prize is that you have really incredible, smart people that are building solutions with people and impact in the center of it, and it's unlike any other sort of entrepreneurship. It's mostly doing work that impacts society, and coming from idea to bringing your solution to life is something that I've gotten as a founder myself to really, really appreciate, and it's always a pleasure getting to listen to incredible and innovative solutions that all have the potential of changing the world. So it was a pleasure being a judge here, and good luck to everyone.
Just to quickly add on to that, just the diversity of solutions that you presented today is incredible, and really in a field that sometimes things all seem like they can all focus in one area. So really kudos to all of you for your creativity and also your drive in being able to bring these ideas to life.
What a great way to end the week. We learned a lot, you inspired us a lot, and whether or not you get the fund, please keep moving forward with your incredible projects.
Thank you all. So for our audience choice winner, drum roll please, it is Balma Health. So congratulations, Sophia and Nick, awesome work. And this year's Thorne Prize winner is the Educator Wellness Project. Congratulations, Nicola. I was excited and I forgot to do the drum roll. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you, judges. So grateful for this and so excited to hopefully be able to use this to get into some New Haven schools. And if not, any school in the country needs this work. So thank you so much. Thank you, Margaret.
Sorry.
Thanks, everyone. We will be in touch over the next few days with some feedback and some resources for all of you. So best of luck, and please reach out to any of us if we can be helpful in any way.